Hey guys, welcome to the third episode of MATtalks with Pablo. I'm here with Levi Miller, of course, and today our main topic of discussion is going to be who is the best wrestler to ever come out of Alabama. A couple things I do want to say before we start this long, venturous journey is one that, of course, a lot of you guys saw on my social media that I am starting to do t-shirts. So if you guys want one, please DM me. So when this airs, I'll probably be actually sending my first order. So I'll air this at 8, and this will go out till 9. The second order of business is I want to give good luck to all the athletes who are competing this weekend. I know Levi's competing, as well as Warriors sending a team, and Ironclad sending a team down to Southeastern Regionals. So good luck to all you guys, and so let's get this show on the road. So obviously, a lot of you guys are going to have your opinion on who you guys think is the best. And I think we can narrow it down to mostly Division One wrestlers. I know there are a couple wrestlers who can arguably be some of the best to come out of Alabama who decided they were going to go Division Two, like J.A. Jones from Thompson, or Jordan Simpson, who was a four-timer at Oxford, who probably could have been really, really good at Newberry. He All-American his freshman year, and that was it. So things happen, life happens, and obviously, you've got some big names, and Levi, you're going to give me a couple, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to, as some of you guys may know, I used to go to Homewood, and right off the bat, Seth Garvin from Homewood, that was a big one. In the early 2000s, he was really dominant. Ended up wrestling at Wisconsin and then transferring to UT Chat. He was a big Division One wrestler, and he had some really big wins. He won a lot of big tournaments, especially in high school.
Yeah, so and you mentioned Seth Garvin, and I'm gonna kind of put these guys all in the same tier. And I was talking with my buddy. I'm gonna shout him out, Derike Lawson. If you guys see him at the Publix in Hueytown, definitely say, "Hey, I know Pablo," and he'll be like, that guy," and it'll all be good. But so crazy enough, you know how we talk about Michael Jordan and LeBron. It's a lot of like, well, how are you comparing them? That's apples to oranges. So obviously, we could compare Michael Jordan at the Bulls in the '90s to LeBron now. And honestly, I used to be very pro. It was Michael Jordan all the way, but you know, I'm still leaning more towards LeBron now, looking at kind of his stats and his rap sheet. But what I'm trying to say in all that is obviously Seth Garvin was here in 2004, where it was a tremendous, a big deal to even go Division One. To Sam Latona. Obviously, Seth Garvin was a pioneer in a lot of the early 2000s work, bringing guys into Division One. He was a four-time state champ over at Homewood. And then you've got guys like Robert Dyer who went Division One, had a little bit of success at the Division One level. To now you got Sam Latona, who was a Fargo champ, the first Fargo champ to ever come out of Alabama, and work his way into everything else. So we're going to talk about it. So we're going to start out with Seth Garvin. Why Seth Garvin could be argumentative to being the best wrestler to ever come out of Alabama. So obviously Seth Garvin, as Levi mentioned, was he's a four-time state champ at Homewood, and he says that he's the reason that the 7th and 8th graders can now wrestle is because he probably would have won 6 times. I can't really remember what the whole discussion was, but obviously he was very good when he started out in the early 2000s, and he worked his way over to Wisconsin so he could wrestle under Barry Davis, and then he transfers over to UT Chat.
Yeah, he went with Coach Crocker, who's still at Homewood now. He was trained with him a lot. They went to Beast to the East, where he placed a couple times. He was placing at a lot of those big tournaments. That's when Alabama schools used to be to travel a little more out of state, which we don't really see as much anymore. But he was out there winning and just placing and beating top ranked guys that just was kind of unheard of from Alabama guys at the time.
Definitely. And so obviously Seth Garvin being a pioneer in getting those guys to being Division One wrestlers is very, very pivotal and to keep creating a culture. The whole point of me bringing up Derike earlier was that we talked about how at Thompson High School, when Talia Tagovailoa, when he came and played ball over there, he obviously just having that guy was going to put them, at the top. But what was absolutely amazing and what Coach Freeman has done over at Thompson is he's been able to keep that going. Obviously, Sawyer Pate, who was the guy who won it my senior year, he's done a phenomenal job with keep going. The whole point is you got to keep the culture there. Obviously, Sawyer Pate was able to train under Talia, but like I said, it's just phenomenal what changing the culture has done. So, obviously for the time, he was extremely good. Now I'm going to kind of fast forward to, obviously we had a lot of people kind of in between there, but I would say the next big solid group of guys was a lot of the guys who trained with Rod Gaddy over at AWC, with Tanner Moon, Robert Dyer, Stephen West, Jeffrey Bostani, John Blakely, and the list could go on. I could name them, but those are some of the guys that are on the top of my head. And of those guys, I mean, Levi, what do you think out of those guys?
I mean, Tanner Moon was Fargo finalist. That's big right there. A lot of those guys just going D1 at the time when we still hadn't really produced like a consistent D1 pool of wrestlers. It was huge. It was big for the time, and it gave a lot of like momentum to some of the people that would come later on. I think it's hard to talk about Alabama wrestling without talking about Brandon Womack. I mean, he was a 6-time state champ and our first NCAA All-American. He was really setting the pace for Alabama, and that was really big, that what he was able to do and what he was doing moving forward. I think he really set the pace for a lot of the guys coming in now, like Sam Latona and those guys who are now being able to move into the Division I level and see that there is room for success and you can be good coming from Alabama. It's possible.
And we talk about how impressive it is only to stay 4 years at college, much less stay 4 years in Division I, much less be an All-American, be successful from the state of Alabama. And those are some guys that we just mentioned. You guys will see it on Sunday. I talked with Jeffrey a little bit about how hard it was to stay 4 years. College is such a crazy thing. I know I'm finished my freshman year, and I'll tell you that it's a whole different ball game out there. But you just got to keep yourself on track, keep your work going together, and But I mean, those guys I mentioned, Robert Dyer and Jeffrey Bostani, they both went to Ivy League schools. Robert Dyer to Columbia, and then Jeffrey Bostani to Penn University. Those are two extremely good schools. And, it's just absolutely crazy what they were able to keep going. Obviously, for some of you guys who may not know, Robert Dyer he trained with Rod Gaddy, but he actually wrestled at Dapper Dan, which is, as many of you guys know, is now more popularly known as, what is it, Levi?
The Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic.
Well,
yeah.
Who are some big names that people may know from that kind of thing?
I mean, the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic it's one of the biggest high school tournaments in the nation. It's Team PA versus Team USA, and it's always stacked with you. There's a lot of years where you get number 1 versus number 2 kids in the nation. Like there's huge matchups that come out of that tournament, and it's really big to be able to go. I know this year Georgia sent Jackson Smith. I was actually went and wrestled with him like a couple days before the tournament when he was just getting ready to cut down and get ready for that. But it's huge just to be able to send kids to that tournament because it's a big deal. It's a big thing.
And then we kind of progressed. Obviously, we had Womack, and we had a lot of really good guys come after Womack. But before Sam, is there any Levi that you can name?
Oh, a name that comes to mind to me real like right off the bat is Cariel Tarter. He was originally a Homewood kid. Some things happened. He ended up finishing out his career at Mortimer Jordan, but he ended up wrestling D1 at UT Chat. Barrett Blakely from Oak Mountain, he was a 2-time state champion, ended up wrestling at App State where Will Miller's going. Those two actually met in a Southeast Regional bracket. I want to say 2000 2016.
2017.
Ended up wrestling in the same Southeast Regional bracket that Cariel ended up winning, but they're both phenomenal wrestlers. And I know Pablo actually has an interview coming out pretty soon with Barrett that's definitely something you should look forward to because he's a phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he follows a lot after his brother, because his brother wrestled for John Mark Binkley as well over at App State. So obviously these are a lot of important guys, and the biggest talk for somebody who we think could be one of the best kids to ever come out of Alabama has got to be Sam Latona. And we could always talk about how Sam Latona is just a phenomenal wrestler. I remember a lot of people tried to discredit his first Fargo championship because it was like, oh, it's 88 pounds. How do you count that? You win 88 pounds. Well, I think that the fact that he placed sixth at the national tournament this year kind of disproves everybody's like, oh, 88 pounds. Because, I don't know how many of those guys who were saying that have All-American to the Division I level.
Yeah, Sam is what he's been able to do is phenomenal. It's really brought a lot of attention to Alabama as like we can produce some of the top talent. I mean, he was ranked as high as number 2 this year. He was the number 2 seed for NCAAs. He was one of those kids who really turned heads, and that was a big deal. Coming from his same team, Gabe Hicksonbaugh, also a guy who went to wrestle D1 and started for Campbell at 133 this year. Both those guys who wrestled together were big names who have came out and gone to do some pretty phenomenal things at the Division I level just so far, so early on in their careers.
I know. Everybody kind of jokes because it's kind of funny that although Sam's one of the best guys to ever come out of Alabama, he's only won one state title. So obviously, me being the two-timer that I am, I'm obviously better than Sam Latona. Ain't that right, Levi?
I mean, obviously. Come on, it's not even a competition.
The biggest name in Alabama wrestling currently has to be Cory Land. So Cory Land obviously has just done wonders, making 2 world teams, being an absolute hammer in the state, as well as going out in state, and has done just a great job. And I mean, there's just not enough I can say about this kid, Levi.
Yeah, I mean, 2-time world team member, Super 32 finalist. He's got some big wins over some of the biggest names in the country right now. He's on his way to be one of the best. I think it's a little early on for us to put him on the same level as some of the guys who have done some of the higher things at the Division I level, but he's on track to become one of the best that we've ever seen.
I mean, all those guys we just named are just the start. I mean, you've seen these places like Georgia who went from being, lowly Georgia, nobody wanted to, nobody cared, you're from the South, so you're terrible, to being probably the highest producers of great star athletes in the class of 2022 with Killick, Singleton, Chase Horn, Noah Pettigrew.
Yeah, Georgia's produced some amazing talent, and I think Alabama's on its way doing that too. I mean, class of 2021, we had 4 Division I commits, and I mean, who knows what we're going to have for class of 2022. We have kids like Jaden New coming out, Cory Land, a bunch of big names that could go on, and Yanni Vines. I mean, there are James Latona. There's a lot of kids in that class of 2022 that could go wrestle D1, and I think that this is just the start of what Alabama could do for the next couple years.
So I got to ask you, Levi, do you think James Latona goes to Virginia Tech?
I mean, I feel like the obvious answer is yes. I mean, both of his brothers going there, it's a deep connection. It would make sense, but you never know. I mean, crazy things have happened. So, you always got to keep your eyes open for it's just crazy stuff to happen.
I know that I've talked to a couple of people that are in connection with Yanni, and I know Yanni is currently talking to a couple Division I colleges out there. I'm not going to spread too much news because I think it's still a little bit of under wraps. I know a lot of those other guys. I know Jaden has a big plan that he'll go wrestle and then come back. And he's kind of talked about it, I know, on some Facebook, where he's talked about, he's like, Yeah, I could go coach over at Jacksonville High School. And, that's some of the biggest things. Although, you may travel far away, as long as you come back home and, or maybe you don't come back home, maybe you go somewhere else. But the point is, everybody has knowledge to spread. If you spread your knowledge, like let's say, I was thinking one time, why is this person coaching? And I thought to myself, well, everybody's good at some aspect of wrestling. They know something in the sport. So everybody's got something to share, even if it is, oh, who was it? Coach Welton used Jake McPherson as an example. Jake McPherson was their 170 for a little bit my sophomore year. And, Jake just had an amazing attitude to everything he did. He was actually like super smart. Like he got a full ride academic to UAB. Like he's like super duper smart. And that what matters more because wrestling will end, and that's actually kind of a sneak peek at our next episode of Matt Talks with Pablo, where we're going to talk about what happens after you leave your shoes on the mat when you hang up your headgear for the last time. And like I said, if you guys want to buy any merch, I'm going to leave a link down in the bio. So, just DM me. And, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. And stay cool, Alabama Wrestling.